Like you always seem very true to your virtues.
I'm selfish. I'll tell you why, because every product I made in the Species line was made for myself. I said, well, what would I use?
Welcome to PricePlow.
What's happening, PricePlow Nation? This is Mike Roberto, and I have been here, but we are more than excited to have the man himself, Dave Palumbo, on with us of RX Muscle, Species Nutrition, and Snake Breeder Extraordinaire. We might need to get into that a little bit. I've been watching some of your videos. Dave, thanks for joining us real quick. I know we have a half hour, so let's get right to it. And So thanks. Would you like to give a quick introduction? You probably don't need one, but...
I think people know who I am. I own Species Nutrition. I own rxmuscle.com, which is our media and bodybuilding media website. And then, of course, I coach people. I've been competing. I competed for 15 years, and people kind of know I was one of the the bigger guys out there. I was over 300 pounds. I was known for being super conditioned, and I just love the sport. I always wanted to make a living from being in the sport. I didn't know how that would happen, and as it turned out, I never got a pro card, but I kind of was one of the more popular people, I guess, at the time. And I just kept, giving away information, teaching people. I probably was a coach before anyone was even coached. I was just giving out free advice to my friends and helping them peak for shows and stuff like that. And, it just evolved into a business. And luckily, I was able to, capitalize on that and put a lot of hard work in it. I was one of the pioneers, I guess, in the sense of starting media websites back when magazines were starting to kind of go out of vogue. I worked for Muscular Development, and then obviously I left there, was fired from there, had an argument with the owner. And then I started RX Muscle, which was really the best thing that happened to me, because then I was able to kind of take my own ideas and run with them. I always wanted to do programming, TV programming. People thought I was crazy. They didn't know how you can't do TV programming. I said, no, I want to do regular, programming on bodybuilding and fitness. And who knew? Look at it. Now everyone's doing programming, right? Everyone's got their own YouTube channel. So I guess I had the foresight. I saw where the industry was going, and I capitalized on that. And it's tough when you don't really know how to accomplish what you want to accomplish. But if you put the thought out there and you just stick tight to what you really want to do and the idea you have in your head, it seems like the universe just kind of finds a way to materialize what you want. And that's been the story of my life, I guess.
Yeah, one of the things that seems that you're oftentimes ahead of the trend, whether it's talking about ketogenic diet or having starting a supplement brand or doing the media stuff like you talked about. Given that this is PricePlow, one of the things, we are, of course, very product-centric and supplement-oriented. I want to let you just go on and talk a little bit about Species Nutrition right here. Since a lot of times you're talking about bodybuilding and stuff, let's just get right into some of your products. And let's take that angle real quickly, just because a lot of our fans are interested in that stuff. One of the things I do want to mention is that I'm a whey protein isolate user, and Isolyze was actually one of the first products ever added to the site back when I was coding it in 2007. So you were one of my beta test subjects without even knowing it. So thank you for existing and having those shiny green tubs and everything. But what's the story behind that? And is Species a big part of your life, or just kind of give us a little bit of the background?
Yeah, I always had a passion for supplements. My goal was to work for Metrics. That was when Metrics first came out in the early 90s. It was like the premier supplement out there. Dr. Scott Conley was the doctor who had invented the product, was the owner. And I always wanted to work for him. And luckily, without telling those stories, I've told it before, I did wind up working for him for 4 years until he sold the company. And it was a great run. And I learned so much from him about quality, because he was always about the highest quality ingredients. And at the time, Metrics was the highest quality. You couldn't buy anything better. They were using the highest quality. Nowadays, we have much more refined whey protein isolates. Back then, it was more like whey concentrates, and they were using egg protein and stuff like that. But when I set forth to make a supplement line, I said to myself, and it was stupid business-wise. I didn't care what anything costs. I wanted to have the highest quality products on the market. That's what I wanted, the Mercedes. I didn't want anyone to be able to say they were better than mine. And that's what I found out later was, from a business perspective, it's very foolish, because your margins, it's hard. You have to sell your products higher priced than other people do, because otherwise you're going to make no money. You're going to go out of business. You might have the best products, but if you can't stay in business, then the supplement line is not viable. So most 99% of the companies that they will not put out the highest quality ingredients. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because they need to keep the margins available so they can make money. And I understand that. It's about running a business. So I put these products out. I said, who cares? I'll just charge a little more. I'm only going to sell them to my clients anyway. And that's how it started. Isolice started with me getting the highest quality whey isolate on the market. At the time, I think it was 27 grams of protein per 30 gram serving size or 32 gram serving size, whatever it was. And later it became, I was able to up that by another gram. We're kind of to 28. We put 27.5 because you got to round down when you do a supplement fact panel. But there's no whey isolate that anyone can buy anywhere that's higher yield than ours. And I also found a flavoring guy that was like he was like a guy that could have probably worked for Nabisco Foods. This guy was a genius, and he flavored the stuff to taste really good. And I was very tough on him. You know, most companies, they put out get a few flavor samples from a manufacturer, they pick one of them and they go with it. I was annoying. I said, this sucks. I argued with the people until I finally got the flavors that I wanted, you know, so that not only was I have the highest quality and the highest yield protein, I also had the best tasting. And so once I put that together, I just started selling it to my clients, you know, that I was working with. And they didn't care. I was direct to consumer. It was sitting in my house. I had no overhead. And I was making good money. And then, you know, people started finding out about it and trying it and saying, hey, I want this stuff too. Before you know it, I'm wholesaling it to stores. Before I know it, my whole house is covered with protein. I don't know what to do with it. I got to rent a warehouse. Now I have overhead. Now I have to get employees. And you know how that goes. And it becomes tougher, you know, because now my margins are not as high. I'm having to offer distributor pricing to distributors. The average consumer, who's not just the regular bodybuilding meathead now, no longer wants to pay, you know, more money because they don't understand why my protein's a little more expensive than Optimum's protein. And now I have to go on this campaign of education. Luckily, at the time, the RX Muscle media channel had been taking off, and YouTube had really taken off. And so this media machine I had created with RX Muscle became my teaching machine, basically. So I was able to now teach people about the differences and the nuances of different supplements, what makes a good supplement, what makes a good higher quality supplement, why you want a higher yield protein because there's less lactose in it, it's more absorbable, you have less stomach distress, less waste product. In other words, if someone's selling you a product that has 22 grams of protein per serving, same serving size, and I'm giving you 27.5, even though theirs is cheaper, you're paying for less protein. So it might not be cheap. So I had to teach people these nuances, which is tough, you know. And so once I got through that curve and I got a very good following on YouTube, we have almost 200,000 followers now, subscribers. Now, when I do something educationally, people understand. If I hold a sale, once in a while we'll get short-dated product. I'll run a sale. I mean, we'll sell 1,000, 2,000 tubs in 2 hours because people like the product. Sometimes the only impediment is price. And once again, I'd rather sell a little less product but keep it at a higher premium than try to blow out a ton of crap. And that's just always been my thing. I want people to say, you know what, Dave Palumbo has the best products on the market. We know that. But he's a fool for putting those out because he can't make as much money. That's a great compliment to me.
What are some of the things so the brand's actually been around for a good amount of time now because time's gone on.
10 years.
What are some of the things you've learned that you would possibly do different back in like the 2007, 2008 era versus right now? Anything that you've changed, maybe even from the nutritional perspective?
The protein really hasn't changed much. We put some digestive enzymes in there, and that's just because, you know, some people do have really, really bad lactose sensitivities. And anyone who produces a whey isolate or any kind of whey product, there's always going to be lactose in it. Now, granted, we have the highest yield, so probably our lactose is very trace amounts. So just to make it even more, you know, lactose free, I guess you could say, we put the digestive enzymes. Believe it or not, you know, they sell milk in the store now. They sell it as lactose free.
Yeah.
Which is how could you sell milk as lactose free? And because the FDA allows you to say it's lactose free if you put the digestive enzymes in there, which if anyone who's lactose intolerant like I am knows, if I drink one of those milks, I'll be pooping my brains out. Yeah. So I don't know why they do that, but so we've added that to that. You know, we've come out with a couple new flavors. You know, the funny thing is, I always find that if you put out high quality, great tasting products, there's not a lot you can change. Like, why would I change the protein when it's perfect now? The only thing I've updated, like I said, over the last couple of years, I put it out. We're going on our 10th year now. I've changed the formula twice, and that's only because Glambia, the company that makes all the whey isolate that everyone gets it from, they came out with a higher yield process. In other words, a better filtration process. Of course, it costs more, but so I upgraded the protein both times because I wanted to continue to say I have the best protein. And But if I had to get into it again, I don't know if I would have. Here's the problem. When I got into it, there wasn't as many companies around. Then around 2012, everyone got into the business, and that really hurt us. So we were doing really well, and then we hit that 2012-13 time period where companies were coming in, like throwing tons of money around, and they were going out of business 6 months, a year later. And so those companies stole a lot of business from reputable companies like myself and some of the other companies out there. So at that time period, I was just like, I got to survive, I told all my employees, I told my wife, at the time was my girlfriend, I said, if we just make it through these 2 years, I said, we're going to be fine. We're going to be solid, because people are going to know that, hey, you know what? They're not a flash in the pan company. They don't put out crap. And that was also the time when people were getting caught protein spiking. They were throwing tons of amino acids in there because they can raise the protein values of their protein without having to actually add whey isolate. Mm-hmm. And I said, if we come out of this and people see that, we've been legit, people are going to get sick of getting conned by these other companies out there. And that's exactly what happened. Our business really increased a lot after that. When it got to about 2014, 15, all of a sudden people started really buying the product and saying, you know what, we're not going to go for these cheap brands. We're not going to buy into all this protein spiking. We're going to stick with reputable brands where we know people have, and there's a lot of reputable brands. I'm not the only one out there. And I think that's why those companies really blossomed after that. And that was important to me, because you know what? Through that whole thing, the impetus could have been to go and cheapen your products. People said, oh, put out a whey concentrate or a mixture, a blend, you'll make more money. And I'm like, no, I said, because then I'm going against everything that I stand for. I said, luckily also during that period, because of education, I started selling a lot more of my essential fatty acid product, my Omega Lyze, and my V-Mineralize, which is my very high potency vitamin mineral mix. It's all chelated minerals. We have fruit and vegetable extracts in there. People started seeing the logic of it, and they started getting very good results from it. And actually, believe it or not, I went from a protein company essentially to my protein isn't my best-selling product anymore. We sell a lot of it, which is good, because protein margins are really really low. You don't really want protein as your number one selling product. So people started seeing the wisdom in a lot of the other products. And I probably sell more Testalize, which is my testosterone optimizer. It lowers DHT, lowers estrogen, raises testosterone. I sell more than that than anything. And that's all because of the education that I put out there, explaining to people what you want in a testosterone booster. It's not just about raising testosterone. It's about controlling the other hormones in your body as well, because that's what ultimately raises testosterone.
Awesome. So yeah, I was going to ask you, we were talking about Isolize so much. Is that the one product that you're probably most proud of then, or outside of Isolize, or? You know what?
Believe it or not, my number one selling, Testalize sells a lot, but probably the number one selling product is my fiber product. Fiberlize is the thing I'm the most proud of, because everyone told me, don't sell a fiber product. No one will ever buy it. I can't tell you how many, when I worked for Steve Bleckman at Muscle Development, understands why you need a fiber supplement, the nuances of fiber, why a high-grade psyllium fiber supplement combined with an insoluble fiber is the way to go, and how all the health benefits of it and how great you're going to feel. I said, I'm telling you, it's going to be a bestseller one day. And no one believed in it, except me, of course.
That's why I was like Species was that it was like a package deal, like your education and the stuff that came along with it. Like, you didn't come out with flashy pre-workouts and stuff like that. It was like, it was your, because the things that you preach to your clients, to your followers, all that stuff, just magically lines straight up with the stuff that you're pushing out. Whereas a lot of other influencers are talking in 1 year about, right, psyllium husk, insoluble, all that stuff, and then 2 years later they come out with a super cheap fiber product, and it doesn't line up. Like, you always seem very true to your virtues.
I'm selfish. I'll tell you why. Because every product I made in the Species line was made for myself. I said, well, what would I use? If I was still competing today and I was at 300 something pounds and I wanted to maximize my performance, what supplements would Dave Palumbo be using? And I had all those because I've been writing people generic lists of supplements to go to Vitamin Shop and buy for years. I said, well, I'm going to put together the ultimate, I'm going to put everything together exactly as I would want it, and that as I use even to this day. And that's exactly what the Species line of products is. It's Dave Palumbo's stacks of supplements that he used back in the day. And, or in certain instances, like there really wasn't amino acid powders back then. Mm-hmm. What would I have wanted had I been competing still? And what would I have wanted? I would have wanted a fermented amino acid product that wasn't just made from human hair. I would have wanted the highest grade amino acids. I would have wanted something that tasted really good. And so that's how I designed every product. And I never, my wife can attest to the fact that I never asked the cost on everything. I always ask the cost after they formulate the product for me, which is stupid. I'm always like, because sometimes, once in a while, I've created, there was a product I created called Keto. It was a whey isolate, and they were able to, they had this technology where they could spray macadamia nut oil onto the actual protein and dry it on there.
Your favorite,
so it was like a protein fat ketogenic shake. This was before keto took off. This was 5 years ago. And it was so expensive when the final tally came in that I couldn't make it. I would have never sold it. It would have been like a couple of just like really, high-end people would have bought it, but I would have, you got to produce, there's minimums. You have to produce 1,000 tubs of the stuff at a time, and I would have never sold enough of it, but it was really probably one of the greatest creations I ever made, and it tasted amazing. It was 0 carbs. It was high protein, moderate fat, and unfortunately I couldn't make it. But once again, I make the products first, I ask the price later, and then I go and I negotiate and try to get the price down to where I can actually make some money doing it, because I'm not, look, after all, I gotta make a profit or I'm wasting my time, right?
Right. So, hey, maybe you should revisit that now, because there's definitely been, the upsurge in the keto diet, which I you have a lot of videos out there that we can link to that get a ton of traffic and everything. Yeah. So I take it you are, so the keto diet community, and I've been part of this as well, but it's definitely shifting, and things are kind of heading into a carnivore direction. So my two-part question, I'm kind of curious if you've ever tinkered with going like all in on all meats and no fiber, or are you, it seems like you are very pro-fiber even in a ketogenic state?
Yeah, I've never changed my ketogenic philosophy. So in other words, when I first came out with this in the late 90s, I'm still selling the same diet, essentially. I'm still talking the same diet. Everyone else has changed, because you know why? Because it's all about fad. People get bored in the general public. So ketogenic becomes popular, then they modify it here and there, and then they change it here, and then in 5 years they'll be eating carbs again, and it's cyclical. I never changed. I just happen to be the cool guy now because everyone's like, oh, Dave's been talking about this for years. He must have known. Well, I'm sure they'll find a new diet in another 5 years. The fad people, that is. The bottom line is that the science of the diet is what it is. My ketogenic diet is a much higher protein, lower fat diet than the ketogenic diet that is put out there to the general population. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because Stone Cold Steve Austin, the wrestler, had come to me, and he was trying the ketogenic diet that's out there, that higher fat one, and he couldn't lose any weight. I said, Steve, you weight train like a bodybuilder. It sounds perfect now.
Okay, well, we just had a quick little problem, so Ben and Dave are flipped at our screen here. So, so Dave, that's actually kind of what I've learned, because if you look at the ketogenic diet as the mass market is seeing it as this high-fat diet, like that was really pioneered to help like young children with seizures, really, and it's great for that. But at the same time, not everyone needs a ton of fat. That's going to be added to your adipose tissue. And we, as athletes, we need a lot of protein. And the whole scare of gluconeogenesis, I think, is downright absurd, especially if you're a hard-training athlete. And yeah, it's definitely been something that affected me. And I have a whole video and rant where I'm going to be talking about that. But man, what I realized is that when I ignore like ketone levels and just chase after going after high protein consumption and just keeping carbohydrate low, I stay in the state. And I'm able to maintain muscle. So it's not a big, I don't know. I think we've overcomplicated things. And when I eat more beef, when I eat more red meat, I do way better. And I almost wish I would have been following your videos a little bit longer, because I could have saved myself a lot of
If
trouble.
It's not broke, don't fix it. I've been saying this. I mean, people like to change things and modify things all the time. And I don't know why they do that. They should just stick to what works. I've been putting it out there. You don't have to change it. You don't. If I would have found a better way to do it, don't you think I would have changed it already? And I tell this to people all the time. If there's a better way to take steroids, don't you think that guys would have figured that out already by now? Everyone thinks they're trying to figure something new out with regard to supplements, to PEDs, to the diet. It's all the same. It's the same exact thing. We figured it out already. Just follow the program. It doesn't have to be interesting. It just has to work,
I like that. So were you adding much like lean tissue on when you were doing keto, or is that more of your contest prep diet?
I would do ketogenic diet probably maybe for like the last 4 weeks. I didn't need to do it the whole time, but I found that it worked amazingly well on women. And I started using it on a lot of guys that needed to lose a lot of weight. Nowadays, and I don't go strictly ketogenic diet on most men. I usually start them off on some days with no carbs and then some days with carbs. And then I rotate it around. As we get closer to a show, I might put them on a full ketogenic diet if necessary. Women do great on keto because women are cheaters. Why? Because they get hungry, they get irritable. And why do they get hungry and irritable? Because their blood sugar levels are all over the place. So you put them in a ketogenic diet, blood sugars are stable, they love it. They do well on it, they lose weight on it, and very few women do I have to take off. Some women just don't like it, but most women love it, and they do tremendous on it. So, like I said, it's not for everyone, but there's the science is there because it creates a hormonal environment that's conducive to weight loss, low insulin, high GH levels, steady blood sugar. I mean, that's why people fail on diets, because they cheat, because they don't feel. If you can make them feel better and assuage their brain to feeling good and steady all the time, it's much more likely they're going to stick to their diet plan.
One of the things it seems like you talk about pretty frequently when you get on this path is that you talk about addiction to sugar and everything. Have you gone deep down that pathway? Because what the community I follow, on Twitter, for instance, we're realizing that when you cut out the sugars, it makes it, or when you cut out carbohydrate in general, it makes it easier actually to quit all kinds of things, and people crave less alcohol and even less pornography. And so I truly believe that not everyone's really nailed this, but there is something there about the whole addiction center and carbohydrate. Wondering what your thoughts are on that, because you've kind of brought it up a couple times.
I equate, because I always saw that it takes 72 hours to get into ketosis, and it takes 72 hours to detox from opioids.
Right.
So I found that was a little too coincidental to be coincidence. And so I found that there is an addiction to sugar in this culture because we eat a lot of sugar. And I don't find that people have that same addiction in people who eat starchy carbs, like very lower glycemic carbs. It's the quick fix, high glycemic carbs that seem to cause that addictive response to wanting more and more and more sugar.
Gotcha.
Let's face it, most people when they're craving something in their body, they think it's sugar they need. Most of the time it's just they don't have enough protein, or they don't have enough fat, or they don't have enough certain vitamins. They can't distinguish that because they don't know their bodies that well. I know my body. I know when I need more fat in my diet. I know when I need more carbs, and I know when I need more protein. I can differentiate the cravings because I'm so fine-tuned with my body because I've been doing this for so long. But most people can't. Most people knee-jerk go for the sugar, and they just don't need that, and that screws them up. I can't even tell you how many times I've fixed people's diets just by changing how they're eating. I mean, their whole mental state of mind changes, their neurotransmitter production in their body, how they think. I don't know about the pornography. Out of my wheelhouse, but who knows? It's possible that there's an addictive link to that somehow.
Yeah, it was definitely very controversial, which is why it came up. But I find that kind of stuff fascinating. The whole dopamine crisis in this whole country. There are blue lights on our phones and a lot of that. Okay, cool.
Let's face it. All the serotonin, 90% of your serotonin that's in your brain is produced in your intestinal tract. Most people don't know that. There's a nervous system in your intestinal tract that produces 90% of if your diet sucks and you got leaky gut syndrome and your probiotic organisms are all depleted in your body, you're not going to produce enough serotonin. You're going to get depressed. It has nothing to do with your brain. It has everything to do with the way you eat. And now they're finding that the microflora of your colon and your small intestine are affecting everything in your brain. They can't even believe the things that they're connecting it to. So there's a lot we haven't figured out yet, and we're just kind of scratching the surface of. So I think it's it's like a renaissance time period in nutrition and supplementation. I think we're only scratching the surface, and I think we know a lot now, but we're going to know a lot more in another 10 or 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So I don't know how much more time we have. I think we're getting towards the end of the half hour.
I think what we should do is I'd like to do a couple segments with you. We don't have to do it all in one shot. You know what I mean? Let's wrap this, and then we can come back next week or the week after. We can keep doing these little segments to help educate people. I'm fine with that.
So just to, it maybe like, because we talked about a few different things here, your career, diet, and talking about competitors and stuff. To close this out, something that I've always wondered. I'm not over 300 pounds. I'm 260 pounds, but still I'm larger than a human being, right? I train every single day, and I diet for that training. So something I've always want to ask someone like you is, how was the transition from eating and training to be 300 pounds to now being yourself, where, you still, I think you still train, you still enjoy that stuff, but how did you, because if you told me, if tomorrow you're like, you can't train, you can't eat like a power lifter, I wouldn't know what to eat in the morning. Like I didn't start with eggs and oats, but I wouldn't know portion sizes. I'm thinking about what my next training session is and how I do that.
I just modified everything. I just downsized it. I don't train as much anymore because not because I don't want to, because I just don't have enough time, because I have kids now and I have a million responsibilities. I'm running 3 businesses. So it just didn't become as important to me anymore. Before I was all consumed with, that's all I wanted to do was eat and train and achieve something. And when I got to a certain point where I felt I had reached the pinnacle of what I was able to do, it wasn't that important to me anymore. And I started to put my energies and my passion and my creative juices, so to speak, into other stuff, creating a supplement line, working on RX muscle. So that became the driving force. So I started eating for health and for that to support my mental function more so than my gym function, because I didn't have to worry about going to the gym and squatting 600 pounds and benching 405. It didn't matter. I went to the gym and worked out, but I wasn't trying to set records. I wasn't trying to lift more than I was lifting the time before that. Wasn't a priority anymore. And you know what? And I wanted to downsize. So that really became less of a priority. I ate less times per day, because let's face it, when you're eating 6 or 8 times a day, you don't really want to eat 6 or 8 times a day. You built up to that because you know that will support your training and your body. When you don't need to be that big anymore, it doesn't become that much of a priority. You could eat 4 or 5 times a day. You can eat even 3 times a day if you want to, and snack in between. And it doesn't matter because you're not trying to support that massive gym effort anymore. And that's what I found. And I have a lot more energy. I need a lot less sleep now that I don't train as hard anymore. When I was training, I was like a baby. I couldn't sleep enough,
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely be excited to do this again sometime. I know it's completely off topic, but I do want to hear how this whole snake thing started. And is that the future of Dave Palumbo right there? Because it looks like something that it lights your face up, and you seem to love it.
Yeah, I love it. It's like I'm a painter, only I'm painting with different snake mutations. And
that is awesome.
I created a few, world's first, and that's
really?
what I'm trying to do, something that no one else has done in the snake industry, and hopefully make a mark in that industry. Just because I really I love the creative aspect of it. I always loved animals, and this is something that's it's not like, it's like a dog. You don't have to play with it every day, and you can keep it in a small tub, and so it's more of like a collection. It's like having a live collection of of shells almost. That you can move around and you can put them together and you can create new flavors and new colors and stuff like that, and patterns. And it's kind of intriguing. Unless you're in it, you really don't understand the intrigue with it, but it's very addicting, just like bodybuilding was. So that's kind of my new addiction. I always believed that you had to have something else aside from bodybuilding to kind of go to when bodybuilding wasn't there for you, if you got injured or something like that, or something wasn't going right. So I always had other hobbies. I had fish. And when I was in New York, living in New York, I had a lot of fish tanks I was into. And so now the snake thing is, the reptiles in general have become a big part of my life. And it's a huge community, really, So, but bodybuilding is always my first love. This is just kind of like another interest of mine.
Great. And so you have a YouTube channel for that we could link to, or what's the name of the business?
Yeah, it's called Muscle Serpents University.
Awesome.
And it's on YouTube. I also have a tropical fish channel called Muscle Fish, which I haven't really added too many videos to lately, but there's so many good ones from back when I was in New York with these big monster fish tanks I had. It's a very popular channel. If people want to check that out, they can look at it as well.
Dave Palumbo, the media master, teaching us some new tricks here. That's great to hear. And we'll link to those channels and to a couple key videos, because a lot of people are interested in what's going on behind the brand, and that oftentimes applies to your hobbies and family. And we don't always want to share all that, but the stuff with the snakes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to tease you next time. Maybe we could talk about it. I have a drink that I'm coming out with. I don't want to tell you what it is yet, but it might be interesting to the viewers out there.
Okay, well, yeah, definitely feel free to send any beta samples over, and Ben can put together a little hype video, throw it up on Instagram, throw it up on YouTube, and we could tease what's coming next from Species Nutrition. You're talking about a Species product, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we do have PricePlow.com/species where you can sign up for the alerts. So when that new flavor or when that new product is out, you will get an alert to your email, and we'll just keep the content rolling and everything. So Dave, I know your time is absolutely precious. Thank you so much for spending a little bit with us.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. I know it's a labor of love, and great job, and keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome to PricePlow.